Welcome back. All right, early on in the season, through the first, 10 games, Philadelphia, it looked like it was going to have a really long season. A lot of losses piled up, but they've been doing better lately. They currently are the number 2 wild card, which they may not hold that position for that long, but I figured, you know what, let's go ahead and throw a video together on the Flyers and let us discuss where Philly's at. So they're 8 points back of Washington. They've played one more game than the Caps. They're 7 points back in New Jersey. They have 2 games in hand. They're 6 points back at Carolina, and they've played one extra game. The odds of them moving up, not good, not great, but I mean they're going out and they're getting points, and that's the key thing for Philadelphia. They're getting points right now. They're 1 point ahead of Tampa Bay, but they've played 2 extra games. They're 2 points ahead of Columbus now, and they've played 2 extra games than have the Columbus Blue Jackets. So they do not have control over their destiny at this point in time, although we're only 25 games into the season, so you never know. You never know. Now, their upcoming schedule isn't easy either. It starts with a home game on Thursday against Florida. Florida seems to have gotten their game back after a bit of a slump. Then they're in Boston on Saturday. Those games tend to be pretty close. Boston and Philly both have had their struggles with goal scoring at points this season, so probably a close low-scoring game, I would think, there. Then they come back home Sunday to play against Utah. Utah's a team that's had their struggles on and off as well. Then they go on the road to Columbus on Tuesday the 10th. I did a video on Columbus yesterday talking about how much better Columbus has been basically at home than on the road. Then at home, they're against Detroit on Thursday the 12th. And they're away on Saturday the 14th. They get to play in Minnesota. And with the strong numbers from Minnesota, that looks like it's probably the most daunting of the games they have coming up. Then on Wednesday, the 18th, they're in Detroit. So they have 2 games against Detroit pretty quickly here. Then they play at home on Thursday, the 19th, against the Kings. Kings are playing well recently. And they're at home on Saturday, the 21st, against Columbus. So they've got 2 games against Columbus, 2 games against Detroit over their next 9. Got a game against Utah, game against Boston. There's some winnable games there. So I definitely think that while they're in tough to stay in a playoff position, their upcoming schedule isn't that bad. It's not that bad. Travis Konechny is having himself a year. 25 games, 13 goals, 17 assists, 30 points. I think easily the best first 25 games he's had in his career in a season. Michkov has been as advertised. 23 games, 9 goals, 10 assists, 19 points. Sanheim, 25 games, 5 goals, 10 assists, 15 points. Sanheim offensively got off to a bit of a slow start. Was not the only Flyer who got off to a slow start, but he's been better lately. Couturier, 24 games, 6 goals, 8 assists, 14 points. Couturier may never get back to his heights when it comes to the scoring side of things, but he's been better lately as well. Owen Tippett, 25 games, 5 goals, 7 assists, 12 points. If Tippett could get majority of his prime opportunities to win the net, I would say that goal total should be at least doubled this season. He has had so many opportunities, just won't go for him. Bobby Brink, 22 games, 4 goals, 8 assists, 12 points. Morgan Frost, 21 games, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 points. Scott Laughton, who's been rumored to be either on the trade block or they're taking calls on Laughton. There's a bit of a difference there. Either they're shopping him or they're taking calls. It sounds like they're taking calls. 25 games, 3 goals, 6 assists, 9 points. Garnet Hathaway, 25 games, 2 goals, 6 assists, 8 points. Forster, 24 games, 5 goals, 3 assists, 8 points. He had a bit of a slow start too. Seems to be playing better recently. Farabee, 25 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, 8 points. Farabee's a player as well that when you watch him play, you would think he has more points than he does. The potential is definitely there for more scoring. Ryan Poehling, 22 games, 1 goal, 7 assists, 8 points. And outside of Konechny, it's really kind of a lunch pail type of player that this team has. Not necessarily a lot of flash and dash beyond Konechny and Michkov. So if the Flyers are going to win, odds are most of those games are going to be close. Probably 2-1, 3-2 kind of games. And their goaltending has to continue to be what it's been recently. So Ersson's 5-2-2 with a .902 save percentage. He's been injured on and off this year. So Fedotov, 4-4-1 with an .881 save percentage. That save percentage isn't great, but I remember writing .821 on the board for him. So I will take .881 over .821 for obvious reasons. Kolosov, 3-4 with an .891 save percentage. Both Fedotov and Kolosov have been better over the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 games. And so Philadelphia is starting to get the goaltending. and they're getting key goals at key times, right? And we'll talk about that too. So their points percentage currently in the NHL at 540 is 17th overall. So in and amongst all of the points and who's where in the standings, you're always going to get yes, but points percentage wise, this team's ahead. Well, 17th in points percentage for Philly means not that far out, and not necessarily trending in a direction that leads to them having to sell everybody off at the deadline. Although I think if they can trade Ristolainen, Lawton, and some of these contracts, I think they'll do it, and I think that's where we're at. I think they'd be perfectly fine with making the playoffs, but it's not going to change how they're running things. We're not going to see them trying to move heaven and earth to bring in big names and all that fun stuff. Regulation wins, that's a problem. They only have 5. That is last overall in the National Hockey League. They do have 12 wins overall, meaning most of their wins have not been during the first 60 minutes. If you're a Flyers fan, I'm sure you're well aware of this because they don't do anything easy this year. Goals per game, they're 22nd at 2.8. That number's come up, though. Goals against per game is 26th in the league at 3.24, and it feels like that number's been improving as well. Their power play's 26th in the league at 16%, so that does need to get better, but their penalty kill's been fantastic, 84.9%, that is third. So their power play not as bad as last season. Last season it was a disaster. This season it's not as bad, but definitely could use some improvement. And then when you look at shots per game, they're getting 27.7. They're allowing 28.3. So it does, to me, seem like some of the numbers are better than where they were last year. But extra time wins are definitely keeping them in this hunt, too. It starts with a shootout victory against the Canucks. Then they had a shootout victory against Tampa. They had a shootout victory against San Jose. So in a shootout situation, they're not bad. Then it's overtime wins against Ottawa, Chicago, Nashville, and St. Louis. It is worthy of note that of the 4 teams they have overtime wins against, none of them are above the playoff line. So Philadelphia has got wins against teams they should, but they've made it harder than I think it would have been if they had a team that was maybe a little more talented, a little more finish. But because they work hard, and John Tortorella won't allow anything less than that, they're staying in it. Now, their record this year, 12-10-3. Last year at this time, they were actually 13-10-2. So very, very similar record. And of course, they finished 38-33-11 last season and barely missed the playoffs. The previous year, they were 8-12-5. They ended that season 31-38-13. And 2021-2022, they started the season 9-12-4 and ended up 25-46-11. So the Flyers are a better team now than the one that was, around 2 years ago as well as 3 years ago, and they're 1 point behind the pace being set by the Flyers team of last season. So does this trend in the same direction? As I've mentioned recently with the Flyers, that's going to be the expectation. The expectation is going to be this team's going to fall off. They're going to have their struggles. It's very similar to the expectations with Calgary in the West. Yeah, that's great. However, are they going to stay above the line? Probably not. And yet, there's always surprises in the NHL. Last year, the Capitals surprised everybody by making the playoffs, so it can happen. Now, on the way, I wanted to mention just a couple here. Oliver Bonk on the blue line, Jet Luchenko as a center, as a forward for this team. Luchenko, of course, got some games at the start of the year, gets returned to junior, and he's seen as, a future, probably top 6 forward, and probably a very good top 6 forward as well. In terms of his conditioning, he's fantastic. He's off the charts. That's why he broke camp with the team rather than getting just sent back to juniors right away. Now, there is a buyout penalty that hurts this team in the event that Danny Briere decides, you know what, maybe we can go for this. There's $7.6 million in buyout/retain money. Kevin Hayes, Cam Atkinson, and Tony DeAngelo all counting and adding up to that $7.6 million. And then one other thing that's still kind of out there, and we haven't heard any updates in quite some time, is Ryan Johansson's contract was terminated by the Philadelphia Flyers. The NHLPA did file a grievance there. That has yet to find a resolution, and when it does, it may very well tack on a cap penalty, both for the Flyers and then for Nashville as well. So that affects more than one team. But the Flyers are in a really interesting spot here. They don't have a lot of expiring contracts either. Like, there's almost no UFAs next summer. The only one I saw that's currently on the roster is Eric Johnson, and then there's Cal Peterson, who's in the AHL. He's not coming up, but that cap money gets taken off the board next season. And so the Flyers are in an interesting spot. There are definitely some good young players coming up. And I guess the question that I would have towards Flyers fans would be a simple one. Are you right now rooting for this team to continue to eke out victories and get these points and keep themselves in the hunt? Or are you thinking, you know what? We could still use another really good draft pick. So if they could knock this off and maybe fall back a bit, which side do you fall on? The side that says, you know what, we've got what we need, and it'd be great if we made the playoffs, or the side that says, you know, the rebuild needs to rebuild, and all these wins and, you know, maybe pushing for a playoff spot could hurt that. It is going to be an interesting remainder of the season for the Philadelphia Flyers, and I'm here for it. I do love that they're able to stay in the hunt when no one expects it, and that they've kind of turned it around after a slow start. And their upcoming schedule, I mean, it's got its daunting opponents with Florida. I'd say Florida and Minnesota and LA are the three that you look at and go, yeah, they're probably not going to get wins there. But there's winnable games here. Last season, one thing that seemed to happen late was that this work ethic that Tortorella preaches and enforces with his players, it eventually seemed to wear down the Flyers, and their play started to slip. Does that happen again this season? So that's the one question that I have. I would love to see the Flyers back in the playoffs for the first time since 2020. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I would like to see somebody in the East who didn't make the playoffs end up getting in, and maybe multiple teams, because it definitely looks like New Jersey's going to make it. But it would be kind of fun if Philadelphia got in there too, because playoff hockey in Philadelphia is usually pretty entertaining. So anyways, there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.